Most people think Thomas Edison invented everything that changed the world. But the truth is, one of the most important inventions in modern history was stolen right from under the nose of a genius who died broke and alone. And the patent that proves it still exists today. Nikola Tesla filed patent US 381968A on May 1, 1888. This wasn't just another patent. This was the electromagnetic motor that would power the entire modern world. But here's what nobody tells you about this story. The man who created it never made a single cent from the technology that runs in your refrigerator, your air conditioner, your washing machine, and almost every industrial machine on the planet right now. Before we dive into the patent itself, you need to understand who Nikola Tesla actually was. Not the internet meme version, not the car company. The real human being who walked this earth and changed everything. Tesla was born in 1856 in a small village in what is now Croatia. His father was a priest. His mother was an inventor who created small household appliances, even though she couldn't read. Tesla always said he got his inventive mind from her. But from the very beginning, something was different about this kid. He could do calculus in his head. He could speak 8 languages fluently. And he had this thing he called his visions. These weren't normal daydreams. Tesla would see complete inventions in his mind, fully formed, down to every single measurement and detail. He could rotate these 3D images in his head and test them without ever building a physical prototype. Most people thought he was insane. Turns out, he was just operating on a level nobody else could understand. When Tesla was a young man studying engineering in Europe, he became obsessed with a problem that every scientist at the time said was impossible to solve. Electricity at that time ran on something called direct current, or DC. This was Edison's system. The problem with DC is that it only flows in one direction, and you lose massive amounts of power over distance. You'd need a power plant every few miles just to keep the lights on in a city. Tesla had a different idea. What if electricity could alternate its direction? What if instead of flowing one way like a river, it could pulse back and forth like a heartbeat? This was called alternating current, or AC, and everyone told Tesla it couldn't work. The math didn't support it. The theory was flawed. Give it up, but Tesla couldn't let it go. He spent years thinking about this problem. And then one day in 1882, he was walking through a park in Budapest, reciting poetry to a friend, when it hit him. The vision came to him fully formed. He saw the rotating magnetic field. He saw how the alternating current could create a spinning force without any physical connection. He saw the motor that would change everything. Tesla grabbed a stick and started drawing diagrams in the dirt. His friend thought he'd lost his mind. But Tesla had just solved the impossible problem. He had invented the AC induction motor in his head, complete and functional. Now here's where the story gets interesting. Tesla knew he had something revolutionary, but he was broke. He was in Europe, and he needed to get to America where the real money and opportunity existed. So in 1884, with 4 cents in his pocket and a letter of recommendation, Tesla sailed to New York City to work for the one man who could help him bring his ideas to life. Thomas Edison. The meeting between Tesla and Edison is one of the most important moments in technological history, and it was a complete disaster. Edison was already famous. He had money, power, and influence. He had built his entire empire on direct current technology. Tesla walked into Edison's office and told him that DC was obsolete, that alternating current was the future, that he had invented a motor that would make Edison's entire system worthless. You can imagine how well that went over. Edison hired Tesla anyway, probably because he recognized the genius in front of him and wanted to keep him close. But the relationship was toxic from day one. Edison promised Tesla $50,000 if he could improve Edison's DC generators. Tesla worked for months, barely sleeping, and delivered improvements that saved Edison massive amounts of money. When Tesla asked for his payment, Edison laughed and said it was a joke. He said Tesla didn't understand American humor. Tesla quit immediately. And this is where most people who don't know the real story think Tesla just faded away into poverty. But that's not what happened. What happened next was a war. The War of Currents. And Tesla's patent US 381968A was the weapon that would decide everything. After leaving Edison, Tesla struggled. He dug ditches for $2 a day just to survive. The man who had invented the future was breaking rocks in the street. But then he met two businessmen who believed in his vision, Alfred Brown and Charles Peck. They agreed to fund Tesla's research and help him patent his inventions in exchange for a share of the profits. Finally, Tesla had his chance. On May 1, 1888, Tesla filed patent US 381968A with the United States Patent Office. The title was simple, Electromagnetic Motor, but the content was revolutionary. This patent described a motor that used alternating current to create a rotating magnetic field. No brushes, no commutator, no physical connection between the stationary and rotating parts. It was elegant, it was efficient, and it was impossible to ignore. Let me explain how this motor actually works, because understanding this is key to understanding why it changed everything. In a traditional DC motor, you have to have physical brushes that touch the spinning part to deliver electricity. These brushes wear out. They spark. They require constant maintenance. They're inefficient and dangerous. Tesla's AC induction motor was completely different. You have a stationary outer part called the stator. Inside that, you have a rotating part called the rotor. The stator has coils of wire that receive alternating current. When AC flows through these coils, it creates a magnetic field that rotates by itself because the current is alternating. This rotating magnetic field induces a current in the rotor, which creates its own magnetic field. These two magnetic fields interact and the rotor starts spinning. No physical contact. No brushes, no sparks. Just pure electromagnetic force. This design was so far ahead of its time that even other scientists struggled to understand it at first. But the implications were obvious to anyone who did understand. This motor could run on AC power. AC power could be transmitted over huge distances using transformers to step the voltage up and down. One power plant could serve an entire city, or even multiple cities. The entire infrastructure of the modern world suddenly became possible. Patent US 381968A wasn't just one motor. It was a complete system. Tesla filed this patent along with several others on the same day, covering multiple configurations and improvements to the basic design. Polyphase systems. Different winding configurations. Methods for starting and controlling the motors. He had thought of everything. When Tesla presented his motor to the American Institute of Electrical Engineers later that month, it caused a sensation. Scientists and engineers who had spent their entire careers saying AC was impossible suddenly had to confront a working motor sitting right in front of them. The demonstration was flawless. The motor ran smoothly, efficiently, and reliably. Everything Edison said couldn't be done was happening right before their eyes. This is when George Westinghouse entered the picture. Westinghouse was a brilliant inventor and businessman who had made his fortune with railway air brakes. He immediately recognized what Tesla had created. If AC power could be transmitted long distances, and if Tesla's motor could run on that power, then the entire electrical grid could be built on this system. It would be worth billions. In July 1888, just 2 months after filing the patent, Tesla signed a contract with Westinghouse. The deal was worth $1 million, which in today's money would be somewhere around $30 million. Plus, Tesla would receive royalties of $2.50 for every horsepower of electricity sold. If this deal had been honored, Tesla would have become the richest man in America. But it wasn't honored, and that's where this story becomes tragic. Edison was furious. His entire business model was threatened, so he launched a campaign to destroy AC power and Tesla's reputation. This campaign was brutal, dishonest, and shockingly effective. Edison started electrocuting animals in public demonstrations to show how dangerous AC power was. He electrocuted dogs, cats, horses, and even an elephant named Topsy. He paid children to bring him stray dogs off the street so he could kill them in front of crowds. Edison pushed for AC current to be used in the newly invented electric chair for executing prisoners, just so he could call it the Westinghouse chair and associate AC with death. He published pamphlets with graphic illustrations of AC accidents. He spread rumors and paid off newspapers to print stories about the dangers of alternating current. This wasn't science. This was propaganda warfare. But the technology didn't care about propaganda. AC power simply worked better. Tesla and Westinghouse started winning contracts to build power systems. Small towns, then bigger cities, started switching to AC. The turning point came in 1893 when Westinghouse and Tesla won the contract to light the world's Columbian Exposition in Chicago. This was the World's Fair, and it was a massive deal. The fair had over 27 million visitors, and every single light, every fountain, every exhibit ran on Tesla's AC power system using his motors. People from all over the world saw the fair lit up like magic, and they all wanted this technology. Edison's DC system looked ancient by comparison. The war of currents was basically over. Tesla had won, but then came the betrayal. Westinghouse's company was in financial trouble. The aggressive expansion and the war with Edison had cost a fortune. Bankers told Westinghouse that the company would go bankrupt unless he eliminated the royalty payments to Tesla. These royalties, based on the patents including US 381968A, would eventually be worth hundreds of millions of dollars, maybe even billions. Westinghouse went to Tesla personally. He explained the situation. He said the company would collapse and all their work would be for nothing if Tesla didn't give up his royalty contract. And Tesla, in what might be the most financially foolish decision in history, tore up the contract. He gave up his rights to the royalties. He did it because he believed in the technology more than the money, and because he considered Westinghouse a friend. Tesla walked away from a fortune that would have made him one of the wealthiest people in human history. The AC motor covered by patent US 381968A went on to become the standard for industrial motors worldwide. Millions of these motors were built. Billions of dollars in value were created. And Tesla received almost nothing. Let's talk about what this patent actually meant for the world, because the impact is difficult to overstate. Before Tesla's AC induction motor, industrial manufacturing was limited. Factories needed to be built near power sources. Machines were inefficient and difficult to maintain. The idea of widespread electrical infrastructure was a fantasy. After Tesla's motor, everything changed. Factories could be built anywhere. Power could be transmitted from hydroelectric dams hundreds of miles away. Motors became reliable, efficient, and cheap to produce. The second industrial revolution happened largely because of this one invention. Mass production became possible. Assembly lines became practical. The modern world quite literally runs on descendants of the motor described in patent US 381968A. Think about your daily life. Your refrigerator, AC induction motor. Your washing machine, AC induction motor. Your dishwasher, AC induction motor. The HVAC system in your building, AC induction motors. The pumps that bring water to your house. The conveyor belts in the factories that make your phone. The machinery in the farms that grow your food. All of it runs on variations of Tesla's design. Industrial motors today are still based on the same principles Tesla patented in 1888. Engineers have refined the designs, improved the materials, and optimized the efficiency. But the core concept, the rotating magnetic field created by alternating current, is exactly what Tesla drew in those patent diagrams over 130 years ago. The patent itself is a fascinating document to read. Tesla's technical writing was clear and precise. He described multiple embodiments of the invention, showing different ways to arrange the coils and configure the magnetic fields. He included detailed diagrams showing the magnetic flux paths and the relationships between the stator and rotor. He even covered edge cases and potential variations that wouldn't be fully explored for decades. What's remarkable is how complete the patent was. Many inventors file patents for basic ideas and then spend years developing them into working products. Tesla filed a patent for a fully realized technology. He had already worked out the problems in his head. The patent included specifications that would actually work if you built them exactly as described. This is the mark of true genius, but filing the patent was just the beginning of a much longer and more complicated story. Throughout the 1890s, Tesla continued to develop and improve AC motor technology. He filed dozens of additional patents covering different aspects of the system: motor control, starting mechanisms, polyphase, power distribution. Each patent built on the foundation of US 381968A. During this time, Tesla became famous. He was the face of electrical innovation. He gave demonstrations where he would shoot lightning bolts across his laboratory. He lit wireless light bulbs by standing in an electromagnetic field. He was friends with Mark Twain and other celebrities of the era. People called him the Master of Lightning. Magazine covers featured his image. He was the Elon Musk of his time, except arguably more brilliant and definitely more eccentric. But Tesla had a fundamental problem. He was an inventor, not a businessman. He didn't care about money in the way that Westinghouse or Edison did. He cared about the science. He cared about pushing the boundaries of what was possible. While other inventors were focused on making money from their patents, Tesla was already moving on to the next impossible idea. After giving up his AC motor royalties, Tesla poured whatever money he had into increasingly ambitious projects. He became obsessed with wireless power transmission. He wanted to send electricity through the air and the Earth itself, making it freely available to everyone on the planet. He built a massive experimental station in Colorado Springs, where he created artificial lightning bolts over 100 feet long. He claimed he could transmit power to anywhere on Earth without wires. Then he started building Wardenclyffe Tower in New York, which was supposed to be a worldwide wireless power transmission station. He convinced financier J.P. Morgan to fund the project. But when Morgan realized Tesla wanted to give away power for free, the funding dried up. The tower was never completed. Tesla went deeper into debt. His reputation as a practical inventor started to fade, and people began to see him as a mad scientist chasing impossible dreams. Meanwhile, patent US 381968A and his other AC motor patents were making other people rich. Westinghouse Electric grew into a massive corporation. General Electric, which had absorbed Edison's companies, started manufacturing AC motors under license. The technology spread worldwide. European companies, Asian companies, everyone wanted AC motors. The patents were worth billions, and Tesla was living in hotels, moving from place to place because he couldn't pay his bills. This is the cruel irony of Tesla's life. He created the technology that powered the 20th century. His patents were the foundation of the entire electrical industry. But he died poor in 1943, alone in a New York hotel room, feeding pigeons and working on theories that nobody would fund. He was 86 years old. He had never married. He had no children. Most of his friends were dead, and the invention that should have made him the richest man in the world had been taken from him by his own generosity and poor business sense. Patent US 381968A expired in 1905, 17 years after it was filed. By that time, AC motors were everywhere, and the technology was public domain. Anyone could manufacture them without paying Tesla a cent. The window where Tesla could have made his fortune had closed, partly because of the royalty contract he tore up, and partly because patents only last so long. But here's what's interesting. Even though the patent expired over a century ago, the technology it describes is still relevant. Modern engineers still study Tesla's original patents when designing electric motors. The principles he laid out are taught in every electrical engineering program in the world. The rotating magnetic field is a fundamental concept in physics. Tesla's work didn't just create a product, it created an entire field of knowledge. There's a darker side to this story too. Tesla's treatment by history is a perfect example of how innovation gets credited. Edison is remembered as the great inventor because he was good at business and self-promotion. He held the patents. He built the companies. He controlled the narrative. Tesla was arguably the more brilliant inventor, but he was terrible at the business side, and he got written out of the story for decades. It wasn't until the late 20th century that Tesla started getting the recognition he deserved. Historians and engineers began to dig into the real story of who invented what. They looked at the patents, the demonstrations, the timeline of events, and they realized that Tesla had been screwed, not just by individual people, but by a system that rewards business acumen over pure innovation. The Tesla name is everywhere now. There's the car company, obviously. There's the unit of magnetic field strength, the Tesla. There are statues and museums. There's even a Tesla Day in New York. But all of this recognition came long after it would have mattered to the actual human being. Tesla died thinking he was a failure. He died believing his greatest work had been forgotten. And the saddest part is that he wasn't entirely wrong during his lifetime. Let's return to the patent itself one more time, because understanding what it actually says is important. Patent US 3819688A describes what Tesla called an electromagnetic motor with a two-phase or three-phase alternating current system. The key innovation was the rotating magnetic field produced by the interaction of multiple AC phases. In the patent diagrams, you can see the stator with its multiple coils arranged around the circumference. You can see the rotor sitting in the middle with no physical electrical connection to the stator. You can see the phase relationships between the different current inputs. Tesla even calculated the optimal angles for the coil placements to create the smoothest rotation. What's remarkable is that Tesla didn't just invent one motor. He invented a whole family of motors based on the same principle. Single-phase motors, two-phase motors, three-phase motors, synchronous motors, asynchronous motors. All of these variations are described in his collection of patents from that period, with US 3819688A being the foundational document. The technical achievement here cannot be overstated. Tesla was working in an era when the mathematics of electromagnetic fields was still being developed. Maxwell's equations were only a couple of decades old. The concept of force relationships in AC power was new and poorly understood, and Tesla, largely through intuition and his visual imagination, figured out how to harness these forces to create rotational motion. Engineers, today with advanced computer simulations and sophisticated testing equipment, are still amazed by how accurate Tesla's original designs were. He got the physics right the first time, working mostly in his head, with hand-drawn diagrams and basic mathematical calculations. This is the level of genius we're talking about, but genius doesn't pay the bills. And this is a lesson that's still relevant today for inventors and innovators. You can create something world-changing, you can patent it, you can demonstrate it, and you can still end up with nothing if you don't understand the business side of innovation. Tesla's story is a cautionary tale about the importance of contracts, royalties, and protecting your financial interests even when you're focused on the science. There's also a broader question about how we value innovation. Should the person who invents something own it forever? Should they become wealthy beyond measure because they had one great idea? Or should inventions eventually become part of the commons, available for everyone to build upon? Tesla's motor became ubiquitous, partly because the patents expired and anyone could manufacture it. If Tesla had maintained ironclad control, would the technology have spread as quickly? Would it have been refined and improved as rapidly? These aren't easy questions. Tesla clearly got a raw deal personally. But humanity as a whole benefited enormously from his motor becoming widely available. The tension between rewarding inventors and spreading innovation is still a live debate in patent law today. Tesla's case is one of the most extreme examples of an inventor being left behind while their invention transforms the world. In the final years of his life, Tesla made increasingly grandiose claims about inventions he was working on. Death rays, earthquake machines, wireless power systems that could be weaponized. Some people think he was going senile. Others believe he was still a genius, but had become bitter and isolated, making exaggerated claims to try to attract funding. We'll never know for sure because most of his later work was never published or built. When Tesla died, the FBI seized all his papers and notes. They were concerned that his weapons research might fall into enemy hands during World War II. Eventually, the papers were reviewed by a government scientist who concluded that there was nothing of value. The papers were later returned to Tesla's family and ended up in a museum in Belgrade. But who knows what insights might have been in those documents that were dismissed as the ravings of an old man. Patent US 381968A stands as the high point of Tesla's career. It's physical proof that he invented something that changed the world. The patent document still exists in the archives. You can look it up online and read the original text. You can see Tesla's signature on the document. You can see the official seal of the patent office. This isn't legend or myth, it's documented history. And yet, how many people actually know this story? How many people have heard of patent US 381968A? How many people who use AC motors every single day have any idea who invented them or how they work? This is the fate of most inventors. Their inventions outlive their names. The technology becomes so commonplace that nobody thinks about where it came from. There's something profound about this. Every time you open your refrigerator, you're benefiting from Tesla's genius. Every time you turn on the air conditioning, you're using his invention. Every time you use any appliance or machine with an electric motor, you're connected to this one patent filed in 1888 by a Croatian immigrant who died broke and alone. The invisible infrastructure of modern life runs on the ideas of a man that history almost forgot. The story of patent US 381968A is ultimately a story about the cost of innovation. Tesla paid the price personally. He sacrificed wealth, stability, relationships, and ultimately his own well-being in pursuit of scientific advancement. He could have played the game differently. He could have been ruthless like Edison. He could have held on to his royalties. He could have focused on making money instead of chasing the next impossible dream. But then he wouldn't have been Tesla. There's a romantic idea that genius should be pure, that the inventor should care only about the discovery and not about the money. Tesla lived this ideal and it destroyed him financially. But it also meant that his inventions spread faster and further than they might have otherwise. His generosity, or his naivety, depending on how you look at it, meant that the world got access to AC power and induction motors more quickly and cheaply than if he had held onto tight control. So when we look at patent US 381968A, we're not just looking at a technical document. We're looking at a turning point in history. We're looking at the moment when the modern electrical world became possible. And we're looking at the work of a man who had the genius to create it, the vision to pursue it, and the tragic flaw of not protecting himself in the process. The motor itself is beautiful in its simplicity. Coils of wire, magnetic fields, alternating current, no moving contacts, no complicated mechanisms, just the elegant interaction of electromagnetic forces producing smooth, continuous rotation. It's the kind of solution that seems obvious once you understand it, but took a once-in-a-generation genius to figure out in the first place. Today, billions of AC induction motors run continuously all over the world. They're in factories, homes, vehicles, machinery of every kind. They're so reliable that most of them run for decades without maintenance. They're so efficient that they convert electricity to mechanical motion with minimal waste. They're so ubiquitous that we don't even notice them anymore. And every single one is a descendant of the motor described in patent US 381968A. Tesla once said that he didn't care about money or recognition. He said he only cared about whether his inventions would be useful to humanity. By that measure, his AC motor was perhaps the most successful invention of the late 19th century. It was useful. It was revolutionary. It changed everything. But it didn't make Tesla happy or wealthy. It just made the rest of us able to live in a modern world while the man who created it faded into obscurity and poverty. This is the story they don't tell you about innovation. This is the price some people pay to move humanity forward. And this is why patent US 381968A, a document that most people have never heard of, describing an invention that most people don't understand, is actually one of the most important pieces of paper in human history. The electromagnetic motor changed the world, and the man who invented it died with nothing. If you want to see what else they don't teach you about history, check out the next video.